Hi, I'm Kira Davis, editor-at-large for RedState.com, and tonight I will be delivering RedState's official response to the President's State of the Union address. One thing is for certain tonight after the President's State of the Union address, and that is that Democrats have read the polls and they are terrified. After spending nearly 2 years calling anyone who opposed COVID mandates Nazis, Hitlers, and grandma killers, Congress conveniently drops their mask mandates just in time for the State of the Union. Parents watching won't forget that many of their kids will still be forced to wear masks to school tomorrow. After decimating the careers of health professionals, pundits, and just average Americans who dared to simply suggest that therapeutics would be a viable option for battling COVID, and after deplatforming and grossly disrespecting the former president for touting them, Mr. Biden now says therapeutics are the key to moving forward with a post-pandemic strategy. After forcing small business to close, destroying family businesses around the country, and leaving big corporations to create a monopoly in the market, Mr. Biden now says small businesses need more help to recover. After ridiculing President Trump and his supporters for his America First agenda, Mr. Biden now asks Americans to buy American in the face of a supply chain crisis. After making America the weakest we've been in decades, Mr. Biden asks us to pretend that we can stand with Ukraine and that we haven't already sold out a large portion of our leverage to the Russians, going all the way back to the Obama administration. After isolating, muzzling, and COVID-shaming our children for 2 years, Mr. Biden now wonders why there's a mental health crisis in our children, and he wants to address that. After keeping schools closed and forcing working parents into an impossible situation, Mr. Biden bemoans the fact that so many women had to quit their jobs to stay home and care for their stranded children. After cheering on and bailing out Antifa and Black Lives Matter protesters as they burned down our cities and monuments, after he and the Democrats went all in on defund the police, Mr. Biden now wants to pretend that they have wanted to fund the police all along. Even as hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants pour across our borders unchecked, even after Mr. Biden, Ms. Harris, and the Democrats tried to paint our Border Patrol as aggressive, cruel, and outright terrorists, Mr. Biden now wants us to believe that he plans to protect the border. We won't forget that he ran on halting construction of the border wall. Mr. Biden hit on some of the typical talking points he knows his base will respond to: roads and bridges, fair share, climate change. But surely his disaffected base will note what he didn't address: wiping out student loans like he promised, wiping out COVID like he promised, bringing peace back to the world like he promised, making life easier after that awful bad orange man finally left office, like he promised. While the average American family has had any wage increase eaten up by record inflation, Mr. Biden chose to blame inflation on increasing costs. But costs are increasing because of inflation. Americans can see right through that. Mr. Biden's speech tonight was a warmed-over Trump speech with 1% of the personality and 0% of the sincerity. He can parrot the former president all he wants, but no matter what he says, Americans are living the real-life consequences of his disastrous administration in real time. It doesn't matter who we voted for or where we live. Every American is suffering. And Mr. Biden can mention roads and bridges as much as he wants, but we all see that simply driving over those roads and bridges is more expensive than ever as we watch our gas prices soar and our disposable incomes disappear. We are living in cities riddled with crime. We are living with the loss of vital education years for our children. We are watching a world on the brink of war. We, the citizens of the most prosperous nation in history, are looking at bare shelves in supermarkets and empty car dealership lots. Mr. Biden promised us more, but he has delivered only less. Also, Kamala Harris's brown pantsuit was literally the worst. Americans have been captured by the fighting spirit of the Ukrainians and President Zelensky. That is because Americans are starving for leadership, starving for direction, starving for passionate leaders who remind us of our strengths, not who deliberately make us weak. Americans are itching to get back to being great, and we have the distinct feeling that this president is standing in the way of that. We look forward to another election cycle and a chance to hold Democrats and this president accountable for what they've done to our nation and our borders and our children. The state of the nation is chaotic and weak, but the strength of Americans will always persist, and persist we will.